Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for joining us on this lovely sunny Friday afternoon to talk about this wonderful benefit that the Governor Scott's administration, along with the Hartford Group, are currently constructing and should be available relatively soon for you to offer to your employees. I think anyone who's been around Vermont or Vermont politics for the last decade can tell you that the discussion around providing leave insurance for employees and individuals is been a long conversation, and kudos to the administration for taking action and starting to create a very viable third-party offered sustainable solution. I'm Austin Davis. I'm the Director of Government Affairs with the Lake Champlain Chamber, and I'll be co-hosting this along with my counterpart from the Society of Human Resource Management Vermont chapter. Mara, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, thanks, Austin. Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Rivera, as Austin mentioned, the Vermont State Council Director of SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resources Management. And I think many of you on this call are probably already SHRM chapter members, and I'm not surprised to see so many of you on this call because paid family leave for HR professionals is a super hot topic right now. So if you find this webinar interesting and want to continue the discussion, join us next week, next Thursday and Friday at the Doubletree Hilton in Burlington. We are having a Vermont State SHRM conference, and I know both the Hartford and the Lake Chamber Commerce will be there as well. So much discussion to be had. I will, for those of you who don't know about the conference, I'll just throw the conference link, registration link right in the chat. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're excited to be part of that conference next week. It'll be very exciting and very, very fun. Some awesome speakers lined up for that. So as I said before, feel free to add any questions or comments you have in the chat as we go along, and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. I also just want to remind folks that we're going to focus this webinar predominantly and almost entirely on the product in front of us here. The administration and the Hartford have done fantastic work standing up this benefit that's rather unique, and we want to talk about that. So the conversation will not include legislative counter proposals or other proposals that might be out there. So I just want to give that note. And then I want to turn it over to Kendall Smith, who is the Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs for Governor Scott, and let her kind of tee this up for us a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Austin. Good afternoon, everybody. As Austin shared, my name's Kendall, and I'm Governor Scott's Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. Thank you again. I know it's been said a couple of times now for everyone's time this afternoon, and also thank you to the Lake Chamber as well as SHRM and any other association that's on this call that pushed out the link. We're really excited about this opportunity to engage with you all this afternoon and answer your questions. We'll go into this in much more detail in the coming moments, but the state of Vermont as an employer has partnered with the Hartford. We are utilizing our state employees to create a pool and to help stand up a marketplace in Vermont for voluntary, affordable family medical leave insurance. So Austin said we're going to walk through the product today, answer your questions, see what more information would be helpful for you all to understand for when this goes live. And during that Q&A portion, you do have representatives from our Department of Financial Regulation, the Agency of Commerce, our Department of Human Resources, who is currently offering this to state employees. If there's any questions about what has been an employer experience as an anecdote, we have had state employees take advantage of this benefit. It's been wonderful during the past month and a half-ish, maybe 2 months now. Again, where's the summer gone since it's been live? So I don't want to take up too much more time. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Goldstein, who's the head of the Department of Economic Development, and then we'll jump in to the presentation from the Hartford. Joan?
Thanks very much, Kendall. I'm Joan Goldstein, Commissioner, Department of Economic Development. I'm going to talk about voluntary paid leave and what it could mean for employers in their efforts to hire and retain workers. Vermont is experiencing its lowest unemployment rate in history. In July, it dipped to a record low of 1.8%. In some regions, it's even lower than that at 1.5% in Burlington and White River Junction areas. Even at its highest, it's less than 3% at 2.9% in Derby. What does this tell us? Workers are in high demand. I don't have to tell this audience that. And if you want to hire them or keep them from taking a different job, you need to compete to win. Pay is one way to do that. Another is benefits. Paid family leave is a benefit most Vermont employees don't have. In a survey that the department ran last year, conducted by the Vermont Department of Economic Development, only about a third said they offered paid family or medical leave. Of those Vermont organizations that do offer paid leave, 62% told us they offer 6 weeks or less. The Vermont Family Leave and Insurance Program is voluntary, and businesses must opt in to it. The plans are fully approved by the Department of Financial Regulation, and it doesn't rely on any public money via taxes because we're using a private insurance company, the Hartford. The plans are customizable. Representatives from the Hartford will get into more details about this, but at least 6 weeks of paid leave is included. And then individual employers can determine if they want to offer more time and how they want to do the cost share with their employees. Here's how the Vermont Family Leave and Insurance Program can help you with retention and hiring. These are some of the benefits. The Family Leave and Insurance Program can make employers more attractive to potential candidates, both from within Vermont and elsewhere. As we know, with this tight labor market, some of you have had to go outside of Vermont and hire remote workers, but those employees living outside Vermont could still take advantage of FMLI if they work for a Vermont employer who signs up. Benefits are typically very expensive if you were to do this alone. For small employers, about 20% of Vermonters work for a private company with 9 or fewer employees. Allowing small businesses to provide this benefit helps them compete with the larger employers who already offer paid leave. And as we know, we're in an old state, right? We're one of the oldest states in the nation. And so older workers who are staying in the workforce, they're more likely than your younger ones to need to take time off to care for themselves and or their spouses. Middle-aged workers are also in a squeeze. They might find they also need time to care for their parents. Low-wage workers are also less likely to get paid leave from their employers. Providing them paid family leave means that when they need to take time off for caregiving, their earnings don't take a hit. We know that BIPOC employees are less likely to have access to paid leave, and providing that benefit could diversify your workforce. Paid family leave is good for your working dads and not just moms. It gives fathers the opportunity to participate more in childcare duties and bond with children, improving their work-life balance, which makes them happier employees. Keeping the workers that you already have is a cost saver. According to Gallup, the cost of replacing an employee can range from 1/2 to 2 times that employee's annual salary. Offering paid leave gives them a reason to stay while minimizing your costs. I'm now going to turn it over to Sharon Andrus from the Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Goldstein. Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Andrus. I am the Hartford's Assistant Vice President for our paid family and medical leave strategy and our product development. Happy to be here and thank both the Chamber and SHRM for inviting us. So Lisa, if you want to go ahead and advance. So what we're going to be doing today is providing you with an overview of what the Vermont Family and Medical Leave Insurance product is and how you can kind of take that forward and go back and be thinking about the benefits to you and your workforce. When we look at this world map, you can see that the United States is the only high-income country that doesn't offer new parents paid family leave for newborns. So without a national policy on paid leave, many states have started creating their own laws, right? Vermont is surrounded by those New England states. And depending on where employees live and work, it's a very complicated marketplace. So when we look at the US map, you can see that there are 24 states that have implemented a mandated PFML program. The Hartford has been providing statutory disability coverage since 1950, beginning with New York DBL coverage. So we have continued as a leader in that paid market, or that paid family leave market, including those surrounding New England states. And due to our experience and expertise in that paid leave space, we were awarded the Vermont contract. So as we were awarded the Vermont contract, we wanted to be sure that we understood what are Vermont employers and brokers thinking about with this new family medical leave insurance product. And Commissioner Goldstein did a great job, but in our research from Vermont employers, they were confused, right? They weren't sure, like, how does this interact with FMLA, the mandated PFML states that are surrounding it. They weren't sure, like, they've thought about providing paid leave for caregiving, but weren't really sure how to go about that. Some of them, quite honestly, had not heard of it at all. And then once we explained the product, employers are saying, hey, this seems pretty straightforward, pretty similar to short-term disability. And so on the Vermont broker side, which are partners as you're thinking about employee benefits, what they liked about this is the variability that our product will bring, and it will be important in helping them to design a program that works for employers. They also thought it would be great enhancement to existing leave programs. And many of them thought that they would recommend that employers provide this as an employer paid benefit. So based on that market feedback, Lisa is going to show a short video, and based on the confusion that we saw from the market research, this is a very simplified view of how our FMLI product will work with that unpaid FMLA and the Vermont state unpaid leave law.
For employers, retaining and attracting talent has never been more challenging. For employees, responsibilities to take care of themselves, their children, spouses, and aging parents are on the rise. Vermont is a state striking a balance between the well-being of its employers and the well-being of its employees, and the Hartford is here to help. Every day, Vermonters are securing their jobs and success through hard work and loyalty to their employers. And they are relying on their employers for wages and benefits. At the same time, Vermont companies are relying on the workforce to help them succeed and grow. And together, through this hard work and success, they keep Vermont's economy moving. But what happens when an employee needs to take time away from work for certain reasons, like caring for a family member, bonding with a child, or tending to their own illness? How can the company fully support the employee during their time off and empower them to return stronger? When an employee needs to be away from work for qualifying leave reasons, the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, as well as Vermont's parental and family leave law, may keep their position protected if they meet certain criteria. However, their leave is unpaid. Through these laws, employees may be eligible to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid time off for family and medical reasons without losing their position. Reasons for unpaid time off may include employee's own serious health condition, bonding with a new biological, adopted, or foster child, care for a family member, including certain reasons related to a family member's service in the military. But how much time can the average employee afford to take off if they aren't receiving any income? To help ease this financial stress, Family and Medical Leave Insurance provides employers a way to protect an employee's compensation during leave. Beginning in July 2024, Vermont employers can offer insurance to help employees protect their income during qualified unpaid leave with FMLI, Family and Medical Leave Insurance, a voluntary insurance solution that will be offered by the Hartford. FMLI from the Hartford is designed to be flexible enough to meet the needs of Vermont businesses large and small. Employers have many options when offering an FMLI plan to their employees. Customization options include amount of leave time covered, percent of income replacement, selecting how the program is paid for. It can be employer paid, employee paid, or shared by both the employer and employee. Eligibility can be defined by the employer, and the option to provide only family leave insurance is available. Our Vermont workforce is better when we take the long view, when we commit to caring for each other in a more meaningful way, and when our work supports our ability to care for ourselves and our families. Many Vermont employees have job protection and are guaranteed access to unpaid leave through FMLA, but without FMLI, these leaves may be unpaid if employers don't offer other paid time off. When FMLA and FMLI work together, job security and a portion of the employee's compensation can be protected during leave. And to fit the needs of Vermont businesses large and small, family and medical leave insurance is optional and customizable. Employers will have the ability to design their own FMLI program that fits their needs and the needs of their employees. And when employees are able to take care of themselves and their families, Vermont is stronger as a whole. We look forward to working together and learning how we can better protect our Vermont workforce.
All right. So we're going to continue to dive a little bit deeper on the differences between the Vermont FMLI and those mandated states, and how this program is beneficial to Vermont employers and employees. So first and foremost, as we've discussed, this is an optional program. It's not required by statute or regulation. Employers are free to choose if they want to offer this to their employees. It's flexible in that you just saw in the video, and we'll dive a little deeper into it in a few slides, the ability to design the program in a way that meets your needs. And it's far more simplified than those mandated programs. So one example of the mandated programs is they all have like a two-tier benefit structure that is tied to the state average weekly wage, and it becomes a pretty cumbersome calculation. And then lastly, it can be integrated with your existing employee benefits like STD and salary continuation. And we want to make sure that it's flexible so that it works together in a way that makes sense to both you as the employer and your employees. So we talked about phase one already, right? We went live with the state of Vermont government employees on 7/1 of 24, so just this summer, or 23. Phase two is why we're here to talk to you today, is for all other non-public and private employers who can choose to purchase FMLI insurance from us, and that with dates beginning July 1st of 2024, the Hartford will begin offering quotes in February of 24. And then phase three will be available to individual employees that weren't able to secure coverage through their employers. They will have an opportunity to buy individual coverage, and that begins July 1st of 2025. And Commissioner Goldstein did a fantastic job. So I'll just hit on the high points of why do employers need this, right? She talked about unemployment being at its lowest. So really a retention and recruitment tool for employers. It's going to promote employee well-being, getting that employee back to the workforce because they were able to access a benefit when they needed it most. It provides similar leave reasons to those statutory programs surrounding Vermont and the New England states. So it brings parity so you can keep that Vermont worker there in the state versus, they're looking maybe elsewhere because they have this benefit available. And then I want to really touch on as well that the standalone, the family leave insurance, the paid family leave can be done on a standalone basis. And then also to think about if you're right now continuing salary continuation, purchasing the insurance might be a way for you to make sure that your risk is less and that you have known costs. So something to evaluate and think about as you're determining what plan design you would want to provide to your employees. And so why do employees need it? If they need help, if they need to take leave to care for themselves or a family member, and this insurance would provide partial income replacement, provide support for them while they are needing to be away from work. It gives them the flexibility to take that time off, and it does allow for intermittent or non-continuous time off and helps foster employee wellness. So what this depicts here is family leave insurance is for those care of family member reasons. So to bond with a child, to care for a family member who has a serious health condition, military exigency, which is if you've got a family member who is being deployed, you can take leave to kind of prepare for that deployment, and then to also care for a military service member if they are ill or injured. And then on the MLI side, that is for the employee's own health condition that makes them unable to work. And that would include recovery from childbirth. So when you look at them together, that is where you get FMLI. But again, you will have the option to purchase the family leave insurance as a standalone product as well.
Sharon, it's Grant. There's a question in the chat that Austin, if it's okay with you, maybe we can take a pause and answer a couple of those questions.
Certainly, yeah, and then we can also save some of them for the end as well. Let's go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk through Michelle's question in the chat for employers that have a paid leave program without having to meet minimum requirements. So that is correct. The program is offered by the Hartford. It does not require you to participate. One thing that we're looking at, especially for employers that may have something in place today, would be that some of these coverage options are very robust. The tracking, Sharon mentioned it earlier, but we're finding with a lot of employers, the tracking of a lot of these leaves, not just the family medical leave or some of the Vermont leave programs, but the tracking of some of this can get to be a little bit difficult. So placing this coverage with the Hartford would help get some of that reporting that you might find beneficial to your overall benefits program when you look at that holistically. The other thing that we have heard from employers is that their paid leave program is typically self-funded. They're administering and paying out those benefits. Because this would be an insurance product, it would be fully insured, meaning premiums paid, benefits are paid out. It would allow you to have a few things. First of all, seamless administration from the Hartford. You wouldn't need to continue to administer that part of your policy. But also, in terms of budgeting, we feel very strongly that when you can use the premium to quantify what that looks like in your budget, it can be an alternative to what employers are doing. And I'll just back that up with Sharon and Commissioner Goldstein's comments earlier. The flexibility, the goal is to make this flexible. If you have a program, or if other employers here don't have a program and you want to decide what works for you, we're asking you today to remain curious. We're going to be able to start quoting in the next couple of months. And our goal today is to educate you as much as possible about the program and its merits, so that hopefully when we begin quoting, there will be an opportunity to really talk more about it with your benefits professional or individuals at the Hartford about what those needs might be.
Thanks, Grant. All right, so let's talk about kind of what are those options that you have as an employer to design the FMLI program to meet your needs. So from an eligibility perspective, the employer can decide what waiting period. Do you want it to start as of employee's date of hire? Do you want it to start first of the month following that date of hire? Those kind of traditional short-term, long-term disability eligibility waiting periods. The elimination waiting period for benefits, you have the option there to provide a 7-day unpaid elimination period before the benefits would kick in. And you can decide if you purchase both the medical and the family leave, does that one unpaid elimination period for both of those, or are they separate? The coverage amount, the benefits can begin starting at 60%. We're not offering anything lower than a 60% wage replacement, but you have the option of 60%, 65, 66 and 2/3, up to 70%. The leave duration, minimum of 6 weeks of leave, and then that can go all the way up to 26 weeks of leave in week-long increments there. The maximum benefit amount that you select can be a flat benefit amount. Do you want it to be $1,000 a week, $500 a week, or it can be tied to the annual Social Security taxable wage cap, which is what the state of Vermont government program allows for. From who pays the premiums, it can be the employer pay all. Employers and employees can share in those costs, or it can be employee pay all. If it's an employee pay all plan, if that's what you elected, there would be an eligibility waiting period before coverage would become effective. So the product options, you have the ability to purchase only the family leave insurance. It can be fully insured if you would, as Grant indicated, one of the benefits, if you have an existing family leave benefit that you're running through payroll using your own money, maybe you would want to look at us administering that on an ASO basis. And that we could also include check cutting on that, but that would take you out of gathering the information and making those decisions. And so we've already talked about how we can integrate it with other employer sponsored benefits and salary continuation programs. So I know a lot of you are thinking, wait a minute, I already have an STD plan. So why would I need the M? Why would I need the medical leave? Things that you would want to consider is, right, in the combined benefit, the FMLI, all of it, right? STD doesn't cover bonding time for newborn, adopted, or foster children. And it doesn't provide leave to care for an ill family member. So FMLI, again, can be designed to wrap around STD, and so it would provide additional coverage in durations and benefit amounts. So let's use an example. Maybe your existing STD plan has a $500 a week weekly maximum, and you decide to purchase the FMLI, and you choose to say, oh, that one is going to be $1,000 a week. So this would wrap around and provide additional benefits up to that $1,000 above your existing short-term disability coverage. And then one of the key differences for the medical leave compared to STD is, for an STD program, an employee has to be disabled from their own occupation on a continuous basis. And what our family medical leave insurance would offer is the ability to offer a benefit if an employee needs to take leave on an intermittent basis. So if you have somebody that needs to go get injections because of a chronic illness 3 times a year, and it's taking them out of the office maybe a day each time, or a couple of days each time, they would have access to that benefit because there's an underlying chronic serious health condition that they otherwise wouldn't be eligible for benefits from an STD perspective.
Sharon, we're getting a couple questions about where employees are located. So I've maybe talk a little bit about that, and make sure you fact check me as the resident salesperson on the line if I don't have very clear and concise guardrails from my Hartford team. I tend to wander a little bit, so please keep me honest. But to the questions around where an employee is located. So as I put in the chat, the goal of this program is to cover Vermonters, and I'll go through a few scenarios, and with the hope of covering the majority of you that are on the phone. And then certainly if there's a unique scenario or something you want to talk through, please make sure to go through Austin, and we can address some of those as well. But so again, goal is to cover employees that are working in Vermont. So in a situation for an employer that has multi-states, if we think back to the map, which for many of you may have just seen for the first time 30 minutes ago, I have it tattooed all over my back because we see it and talk about it every day. But some of those states have their own policies and provisions for paid family medical leave. Some of the more recent ones being in Massachusetts and Connecticut. And so an employee that is working in Massachusetts, for instance, they would be covered under the Massachusetts paid family medical leave policy in most situations. So our goal here, the way we would ask you to be thinking about this, is for your Vermont-based population that wouldn't have access to Massachusetts or Connecticut to be able to cover those individuals. And just as a side note, when Sharon talked a little bit about parity, that's one of the aspects about this program that we find very intriguing is how do we get parity with some of the other states? I sit in New Hampshire, so there are, this topic has been top of mind for me, not only with where I sit, but I manage our New England region, so a lot of exposure to Massachusetts. So for employers that have employees in Vermont that really have not had access to a benefit like this, but their Massachusetts employees may have access to it, the goal is to be able to create a situation where there's access to this coverage regardless of where you live, but certainly an attraction for employees that are in Vermont. To Holly's question around where you're headquartered versus where your employees are. So your employees in Vermont with your Vermont EIN, they would have access to this coverage. If you're headquartered out of a different state, that's not as important as having employees in Vermont, typically with some kind of brick and mortar or at least an EIN based in Vermont that we can issue that policy to. We think there are going to be situations, many situations like that, Holly, where you're headquartered out of state, but your employees in Vermont that look across different borders and say, why don't we have access to this coverage? This would be a very viable solution for your benefit program.
And then I think I'll react to Ann's, and Grant, you can back me up here, that asking if a Mass employer can buy a program for just Vermont employees, so it matches that mandated Mass PFML product. So at this point in time, we wouldn't duplicate that product, right? We want to stick to the fact that this is a simplified version that can be designed to maybe potentially get close, but in a lot of ways, it could actually be a richer benefit for the Vermont employees versus the Mass employee with a mandated benefit.
And worth noting, we're here talking to all of you. Distribution wise, this product is going to be sold through brokers primarily. So we're working on educating brokers at large as far as what the program offers, the benefits of the program, doing some webinars like this with brokers out there. We feel very strongly that the broker community, they are the experts that you work with on a day-to-day basis when you sculpt out your benefits program, and that we would keep that largely unchanged. We want to be an access point for all of you. We want to make sure your questions are answered, but the expectation is that we'll be able to work right alongside your brokers that you trust today with your benefits program to help either answer questions or build this out for you.
And great question on what is the minimum group size. We'll offer this to employers with 2 or more employees. Austin, we're just stealing your moderating stuff here. Overachiever, sorry.
You can blame me. Used to it.
Right. Lisa, if you want to go, I think we have one more slide. And Grant, I'm going to pass this one to you.
Yeah. And so, I'm going to try to offer up how the commissioners of the state are feeling about working with Hartford. And certainly if I speak out of turn, please come off mute and let me know. But speaking for the Hartford side and the partnership with the state as we implemented what we call phase 1, which are the Vermont state employees. When we think about the basically 3 tenets of what we did over the last 7 or so months, Certainly our expertise, and we've talked a little bit, Sharon talked a lot about the history of the Hartford with statutory programs, but the ability for us to come to the state without needing, with the ability to have a sort of a blank canvas to work from, but with some guardrails, with some ideas around how other programs work. Being able to bring expertise to that product development as we were sitting down and walking through it, I think worked out very, very well. You were well represented at the state when we worked through the phase 1 highlights. From the Hartford side, we stood up where we adjusted our systems to make sure that we were accommodating phase 1 and more as important, our phase 2 approach. And so for us, making sure that we had everything stood up, ready to go, it was a modification of some of the systems that we use today, that if there are Hartford customers out there, similar to the systems that you know us for today. I thought our collaboration with the state and the HR department was fantastic. The state has, if I think about the state as our client, they have policies and procedures when a state employee needs to take time off for work. I felt like we worked really in concert with what we were mutually trying to accomplish, which is when that employee experiences a need for a leave event, how best do we get that information without disrupting the processes that are already happening at the state, maybe enhance some of those policies, but that ability to collaborate to make sure that employee experience is a positive one. I think we really have reached that even a couple of months into the program. We filed our policy, we filed our rates with the state. All of those things are in compliance, and I'll speak on behalf of the Hartford, but Commissioner Gaffney and team did a really great job turning around everything we're doing through the filing process. We took early notice claims as of 6/1. So again, if you think about some of these programs when they're rolled out to different constituents or different employees, they start thinking about what's in it for them, either wanting to hear more, or maybe there's a scheduled surgery coming up on July 2nd that they want to get ahead of. We made sure to have our systems ready and accessible on June 1st to get some of those early notice claims in-house under our roof to make that employee experience a little bit more seamless. Less of a logjam on 7/1 with claim filing. So we were able to get everything up and running for June to be able to get things through the system so that we could start paying on July 1st. So, I think from our vantage point, we're very grateful to have gone through this experience with the state and the state employees. I think we learned a lot mutually from each other. And we're extremely excited about phase 2. I think with what we've learned from the state employee population, I think it's directly applicable to what we can do for you all as employers.
All right, well, Austin, now we will actually let you try to figure out if there's any more questions.
All right. Well, you want to take down? Yeah, there we go. I'm not sharing the screen anymore. We've got a couple questions that have come in through the chat in the last couple seconds. And someone was asking for an idea of the range of what the rates might look like. Do you have any model policies or anything like that to share with folks?
Yeah, Austin, I can take that one. So that's a great question. It's a very encouraging question to start thinking about what this is either going to cost employees or going to cost a business that might want to make it employer paid. So we appreciate that. Keeping in mind, this plan is almost fully customizable. So if you're thinking about the premium difference between a 6-week benefit and a 26-week benefit, that premium gap can be quite large. So what we've tried to do is model some of our premium that I'll talk about in a second after what the state had done. And that range is roughly $4 to $8 per employee, depending on per employee per week for both the medical and for the family portion, modeled off of what the state is offering their employees. We think it's a very affordable price point, and we feel like the coverage that an employee would get for that $4 to $8, again, sort of based on the parameters of the state, we feel like is a good price point.
And then we have a question in the chat about the average percent of income replacement, average max benefit that companies are offering currently, if you have that.
Yeah, I will, maybe not as quantitative as you might like. Certainly we see the benefit percentage being in that 60%. Some of it depends. If it's an employee paid, there might be different tax ramifications for if you go up to 66 2/3 or to a 70% plan and it's employee paid, that income replacement can get to be quite large. So we usually see it mirror a little bit similar to our short-term disability block, which has a majority 60% benefit plans, maximums of roughly $1,000 per week. That's typically what we see when we go to quote.
Thank you. And folks, at this portion of the webinar, if you'd like to, rather than put it in the chat, raise your virtual hand. You can ask a question yourself. We have another question in the chat. Can you offer this to just FTE employees, or should every employee have access?
Yeah, and Colleen, that is one of the options that you get to decide, right? Because that goes into that eligibility. Do you want to just limit it to your full-time employees, or offer it to all employees? I think there's a strong argument that part-time employees need the benefit just as much as full-time employees, and maybe in some cases more, depending on their situation. But that's definitely one of the options you would have in designing the program.
I think that's one of the most interesting things to me as we look at this, is just how customizable this is and how it has the benefits of being tied in with the state employees program as well. Can you just talk about a little bit of the benefits of kind of commingling in this one risk pool, the state employees, and then all of these folks who will potentially be able to jump in that risk pool later?
Yeah, and Austin, far be it for a salesperson to talk about the underwriting and financial aspects of this. I will do my best and try to do my brethren in underwriting and actuarial some justice here. So, for a couple things come to mind there. First, from just an overall expense perspective. Instead of having to configure all of our systems and all the things that go into the expense of running an insurance policy, the ability for us to do that once and spread that not only with the state employees, but the phase 2 employees, the phase 3 employees, we think keeps expenses low. When you've got more individuals within that pool, it's going to cost more for 2 employees in a typical private insurance situation on a per head basis versus when you spread it out over a larger employee population. So employers will be able to take advantage of a better spread of expenses across multiple employers, multiple individuals. From the overall financial portion, the ability to have the state employees really gives us a nice look at some of the trending. And so we're able to look at the Vermont plan sort of from a holistic perspective as well. We can spot some trends in different areas. So the bigger the organization that we're looking at, the more credible from an underwriting perspective that organization becomes. So the hope would be that any spikes, any big gaps in in claims would be sort of mitigated with the result of having more employees in that pool. We're still going to underwrite individual cases, but with the backdrop of having a larger population, it allows us to sense what's coming down the road and maybe mitigate some. If there's a potential high claim month, we can look at that against a bigger backdrop than just specifically to that employer.
Thanks. Yeah, there's something that came through the chat about phase 3, and obviously you focus most of your presentation on phase 2 because these folks are employers. Can you talk a little bit more about phase 3 and how opening up to the individual market will interact with the folks who came through in phase 1 and in phase 2?
Grant, do you want to take? Yeah.
Why don't you start, Sharon?
Yeah, so our hope, right, is that as employers, that we get so many people covered through their employment benefits because of all of the advantages, right, that Commissioner Goldstein talked about from a recruitment and retention. But for phase 3, employees will have the option, if not covered by their employer, to do that individual coverage. So at the end of the day, still great for Vermont workers, right? That they would have the ability to purchase that. And then as we continue to design that phase 3 product, we will, come out with education on how does that interact, right, with maybe some existing STD plans. The idea would be if they have the benefit through their employer, right, we just need to work out those details. We're very thankful that the state of Vermont has done this in phases so that we can really focus on each phase and deliver a great product. So more to come on phase 3 for sure.
Thanks. There's a question in the chat about waiting periods, and they're wondering how long an employee or an employer has to be paying the premium before someone can take advantage of the benefit.
Yeah, so depends on the start date, but if you've got a policy that starts on 7/1 of 2024, premiums are due within that month. And employees there's typically some kind of waiting period, again, going to the customization and the flexibility that we put together along with your benefits broker. It would simply depend on the waiting period that you put in for benefits. When I hear that question, and I don't know if this is where the individual is going, but there's no prepayment required. So for those that lived through what I affectionately know as the nightmare in Massachusetts or Connecticut, the state required at a minimum 12 months of premium be paid before an employee could even access that program. That is not the case here because Vermont is partnering with a private carrier. Premiums are due when the policy goes into effect, and then depending on the waiting period, that employee would have access to that coverage at that time.
Yeah.
So that is an advantage of going the private carrier route, is that we don't have to bring those premiums in and have that lag time to stand up the risk pool.
Correct.
Fantastic. Someone asked in the chat if they can access STD and FMLI at the same time to get a full paycheck.
So again, depends on how you choose to design the program, right? I think I said when I was in my presentation, like, so if the existing STD plan is a $500 weekly maximum and the employer decides to purchase the medical part of FMLI as well at $1,000 a week, we can, we would make up the difference. So it really will depend on the plan design that each employer chooses to implement.
I think that's such a fantastic attribute of this plan. Just from my perspective, we deal with, many employers every single day in Vermont, and anyone who's worked with Vermont employers can tell you that no two are alike in this very small state. So just really excited about that. I want to just call that out. Commissioner Goldstein, you have your hand up for a question.
I do. I mean, I guess I'm hearing again and again that this is customizable, and I think that's the overarching message. Having said that, how is the best way for these employers to proceed? Let's say there are 50 employers that all want to have separate programs. How should they how should we organize this so that we could get the information to them, as well as how does this end up coming to fruition?
Yeah, great question. So we will be able to begin quoting in early February. So at this, where we are today, we're hoping that the runway that we've built over, the time period from now until early February, we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. Distribution is going to be done through brokers primarily. So we are getting out to the broker community, educating them on this product. We encourage you, if you have questions, you can certainly come and find us. To Mara's point, we'll be up in Burlington at the end of next week. Come hunt us down. I think we're at booth 507. But certainly talk to your trusted benefit advisors, and we will make sure that when we are able to start quoting, we get back out to those brokers and remind them, hey, there's a quote, or there was interest in a quote. Let's get this out to this employer. But we feel like that what I will call more grassroots, meaning an employer is interested, employer gets a quote. That's sort of how we're expecting this to go, Commissioner.
Yeah, and to just piggyback on Grant for a bit, I think this is the perfect time to start looking at, what do you want to offer? What do you currently offer? How can you look at this to say, how can I supplement what we're currently offering? Or maybe this is a brand new offering, having focus groups with employees. How important is this to them? Take this time to really go through your existing benefits and figure out the value that this will bring to you as an employer.
Laura, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I had a quick question about talking about customization. Down to what level can it be customized? Could it be per employee is choosing what level, whether it's medical or not medical, or is it up to the employer to do that?
It's up to the employer, right? We'll have a single policy issued to the employer, and then each employee within that company would have access to the same benefits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more questions coming in the chat, but before that, is there a link that we can put in the chat to send folks to, where they can kind of learn more information and be directed to you, so they can start working on setting up those plans and asking those important questions to their employees?
Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about the website?
Yes, I can. I will drop that link in the chat right now. We do have a website where employers can go and learn more. There's also a contact us button down at the bottom, but all the specifics, everything we reviewed today is in there. And definitely go visit it. We will also be following up. Austin will be sending out this presentation. It does have the link to the website in it, but we'll send it again separately. So if you have any questions, that's how you would get us. So thank you.
Awesome.
And just a quick shout out, Austin, real quick. Lisa's done a fantastic job from a marketing. I don't know if we can give out gold stars on Friday afternoon webinars, but I'll give one to Lisa. The videos, the websites, a lot of the assets that you'll be able to pull from the website. Lisa was instrumental in designing and developing out. So it was really, she did an amazing job getting a lot of things done.
Well, I'd like to consult with my co-host, but I think the Lake Chamber is fine with getting gold stars on Friday.
Okay.
So, Mara, can we bestow her with a gold star?
Oh yeah, where's the gold star in the reactions?
Yeah, I was looking as well. Consider yourself gold starred. It is fantastic marketing collateral, and it's easy and digestible. And folks, visit that website, and be sure to reach out also to myself or Mara or your association. Provide feedback on this. Tell other businesses about this. This is something that's gonna be coming down the pike very soon. We have a couple more questions that have come in the chat. Someone actually brought up the Massachusetts plan in particular, and they're saying that the PFML pays first and then STD offsets payments by subtracting what was paid under PFML to the employee. How would the Hartford coordinate these claims?
Yep. So the intent is that if you have short-term disability, and again, I'll preface all of this in the vein of customizable, but we also don't want to disrupt what businesses are doing today. If you're a business in Vermont, you've selected a short-term disability plan. We're extremely sensitive to the fact that you chose that short-term disability plan for a reason. We think there's a lot of merit to the family medical leave insurance program and the medical piece of that. The intermittent portion being quite a bit different from short-term disability. So short-term disability, the intent is to have your private short-term disability plan pay first. And then if that maximum is lower than your FMLI plan, there would be the difference paid out of there. If it's an intermittent claim that can be filed under Vermont FMLI, that would be payable, typically without offset if it's intermittent. So it's different from Massachusetts in that if you have a private short-term disability plan, the state offset would come into play. That's different than the intent of the Vermont plan, which is to be as least disruptive to businesses as possible. If you have your short-term disability plan and you're adamant about keeping that plan, that is absolutely your call. In that situation, the intent is for the FMLI to pay secondary to that plan. The rates will reflect that. So just as that when I throw out the $4 to $8 per week per employee, the rates, if we're offsetting for that medical portion, meaning you've got a private short-term disability plan, we obviously wouldn't pay as much under the medical portion in aggregate. The rates will reflect the fact that you've got a private short-term disability plan and that our medical claims would be slightly less than we would have expected.
And just to reiterate, because this came through the chat as well, who is the first payer? Is it STD or is it FMLI?
STD.
Perfect. All right. Well, do folks have any further questions? We're coming up on about an hour. Feel free to put in the chat again or raise your hand. Virtual or real if you're on the screen. I guess I would just again reiterate, visit that website, stop by their booth at the SHRM conference, and reach out to me or Mara or whoever your trade association that you typically go to is with your feedback, and give this a share to your friends, peers, colleagues. This is going to require everyone kind of spreading the word. So with that, I guess folks from Kendall, do you have any closing remarks or any final thoughts you want to share?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Again, we're so happy we were able to walk through what this product is, the timeline that we're working on. And as we get closer to February, we will be having more information, more concrete quotes, like Grant was saying, around February for individual plans for employers that were interested. So if it's something here that you think, oh, I may be interested in this, or I definitely am interested in this, please keep that website bookmarked. Please let us know. That way we can stay in communication with you all. But otherwise, I hope people have a really great weekend.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldstein, do you have anything to add?
Nothing at all. Thanks, everybody, for the time, and this was very informative.
Sharon, or Grant, or Lisa, any closing thoughts from the Hartford?
Just again, thank you very much for spending some time with us on this Friday afternoon. And also, I love that Kendall said bookmark that website, because we're going to continue to create content out there as we continue down the path towards 7/1 of 24. So thanks for your time.
We appreciate it.
Well, fantastic. Thank you all for sharing with us this afternoon, all about this incredibly customizable opportunity to provide this benefit to employees that can make these employers competitive and support their employees. So thank you all, and we'll follow up with the related links and slides, as well as a recording of this webinar. Mara, do you have anything else to add?
Just that, thank you so much to the Hartford for this session. And, just to remind people, this is the start of a conversation, right? This is just the beginning. I think there will be lots more questions, lots more information coming our way. So hang tight. It sounds like more information is coming. And if you are at the conference, I think you're at booth, what is it, 509?
507.
507.
Yes, I put it in the chat. Yep.
Thank you. Great. Swing by them and ask more questions, and we'll continue the conversation. We have time.
Sounds great. All right. Well, everyone, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all soon.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.